Right, just before we crack on with this episode, just a quick word about our sponsor, KS Civils and Groundworks Limited, based in Leeds. They have over 296 years of combined experience in civil engineering and groundworks. Led by Director Carl Smith, their team is known for honesty, reliability and commitment to the highest safety and quality standards. They're proudly ISO accredited and fully CHAS Elite accredited. No matter the size of your project, KS Civils and Groundworks delivers professional, trustworthy service you can rely on. To learn more, visit kscivilsandgroundworks.co.uk. Now let's dive back into this episode. Well, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Tonight I'm going to be chatting with Gareth Evans. Now, Gareth served with the Royal Scots Dragoons for 15 years and then went on to part of the Army Welfare Services for 5 years. After the military, he's a hypnotherapist. Is that all right when I'm saying a hypnotherapist? I just don't want to get that bit wrong. Welcome to the podcast. It's the same questions that I'll ask you that I ask everybody else. So where did you grow up? What was it? What made you join the military? What was it like? Why did you leave? And what have you done since? And I'll be quite interested in that. What have you done since as well? So if you just want to give us a bit about yourself, give us a bit of background. You know, where did you grow up and what made you join the military?
Yeah, so I grew up in Leominster, which is a small town north of Hereford. As I was growing up there, my older brother was in the military, he was in the light infantry. And where I come from is the stepping stone of drugs into Wales. So slightly north of me is a little bit posher place, and south is Hereford. So and generally you don't have the massive footprint you do because there's no police in Leominster. So as I was growing up, it was very much of fight or flight. That's how you grow. And if you learn to flight, then you're going to get bullied. And if you learn to fight, then you run your own mind and people tend to leave you be. And I come to the age in my teens where I was either going to go down the drugs route and get in trouble, which I really didn't want to do. And I wasn't really that much of a bright spark to have the education behind me. So I decided to follow my brother's footsteps into joining the military.
So what made you join the Scots Dragoon Guards then?
Well, that was my granddad. My granddad was one of the original guys over in Africa that was joined to one SAS. And he moved over and ended up being in Hereford until he left. He was in the Royal Scots Greys. And then, he went from there to... when he became a veteran, he moved to a small little village to the west of Hereford, which is where my mum and my dad met. Because my dad, my granddad on the other side, didn't go into the military at all because he was a truck driver. He never saw any action at all. So it was literally the two polar opposites. I don't know what a dinner table conversation would have looked like from that. But yeah, when I joined the military, my mum's like, "Oh, go and join the Desert Rats." And I was like, "Well, I don't know who the Desert Rats are." They was like, "Well, join the Scots Greys." To now is the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards, and so the rest is history.
And were you prepared for the military, or did you just haphazardly go?
I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I was in the Army Cadets. I thought the Army Cadets would be a bigger scaled version of the army, and in some ways it was. In basic training, you're learning how to leopard crawl and to do the other bits and pieces in field craft. So you got the idea of wearing DPM and eating ration packs, but I had no idea what I was getting myself into until I arrived at the regiment with lots of Scottish people all around me. My mother's from Scotland, but again, I had very much of a strong English accent when I was nicknamed the Armoured Farmer. So that was my exposure to the military.
So what was training like for you then?
It was a good laugh. I really enjoyed it. I was in Winchester for my phase 1. And when I come out of Winchester, I went to phase 2, which was Bovington with the tanks. I really enjoyed it. I always enjoyed learning ever since I joined the army. Not when I was in school, but I found everybody within the military has got their own sort of mindset. And it goes back to my days in Leominster, really, where if you're a little bit weak, especially with the Scottish, if you're a little bit weak, you're going to get attacked verbally. Where if you can hold your ground, then you can push and people respect you. And that Scottish English sort of divide just dissolves away if you hold your own. But if you do show yourself as weak and if you do show yourself as weak, then you're going to get eaten alive. So yeah, in basic training, it was just a case of pushing forward and enjoying yourself, going out with the guys and learning new things. And at the end of the day, trauma bonding with all the guys without realizing that you're trauma bonding.
Well, we never even thought of stuff like that back then, really, did
we? Not at all. Not at all.
No. I mean, yeah, not at all. I mean, you knew it was bonding, but you wouldn't have thought what was going to be happening there, later on in life and stuff like that. I was going to mention that, a Scottish regiment. There wouldn't have been many English in it, but you've already answered that before even that state. If you hold your own, you'll survive. So I can imagine it could be quite rough, that.
Well, one thing I find about the Scottish, they're brilliant people. I've got a lot of time for them. So when the Scottish are sober, they hate the English. When the Scottish are drunk, they hate the Scottish.
Right.
and that goes in. It goes down to football, right? Rangers, Celtic. It goes down to regiments like armoured or infantry. I mean, it doesn't matter. If you walk into a pub when you are sober with a bunch of Scots, they'll angle themselves towards, like RTR was one of the regiments that was in Fallingbostel with us. So they would have a hatred towards the RTR until they start having a couple of beers, and then they get angry, and then you point the direction towards the other Scottish regiments like the Black Watch or whoever. So it's really interesting just to watch. I love the Scottish. They're absolutely brilliant.
So what was it like turning up at your regiment then for the first time? Because most people find that as daunting as turning up to training.
Yeah. So I turned up when the guys were in Kosovo in 2001. So it was only me and about 4 other guys that I was.
Yeah, and there's no way around that either, is there, really? There's not a lot you can do about it. Oh, yeah. I joined in the 80s. It was, I'll say the NIGs weren't so welcoming, when we got the red. In fact, I was quite lucky. I went on to be a clerk, so I thought it'd be easy. And I was in HQ battery, and the lads there really looked after me. Probably looked after me a bit too much. I was pissed every night. It was great. But then I ended up moving from HQ battery into one of the gun batteries to go on the guns, and that was an eye opener. And that was probably the best thing I ever did, really, because I was rubbish as a clerk. Really bad. And people who podcast have heard me say that many, many times. So, I mean, what was your, I've said it again on this podcast, I've got a liking, let's say, for tanks, hence the models, right? And I wouldn't say I regretted not joining the tankies because I didn't really know about them, in 1985. So, I mean, what was it like doing your tanks course and stuff like that? It was your back.
But here I am.
Right. Where were you up to? 11 minutes 30. Let's bring minutes off that. Just marking down so I want to go to where it's when I need to delete out.
Okay.
Anyway, you were on about the positions on the tank and the different jobs.
Yeah. Are we still recording, or do we need to go into it? Are we still there? Okay, how are we looking now?
That seems better.
Yeah, I've gone into my work phone hotspot, so I have no idea what's going on. I've never had a problem with Wi-Fi here before, but it seems like today I am.
It's quite bad.
Yeah,
it's quite bad. I mean, we'll crack on. We'll see what happens. Yeah.
Okay.
So we've got up to the point where you were talking about the different positions on the tank.
Yeah. So I've loved all the different positions on the tank. My favourite would be the operator. But oddly enough, from the 6 tours I've done from both Iraq and Afghanistan, I've only ever done 1 tour of a Challenger 2, and that was in Telic 1 as a gunner. But all the other times I've been on many different platforms from...
What's going on?
Have we gone?
That looks a bit better.
Nothing different.
Well, we'll see how we get on. It's sort of them things, isn't it? So that's 18 minutes.
Yeah. And now it's saying trying to reconnect, make sure you're...
Yes.
Okay, if I come away again, then I'll try one more time on my phone. It's not going to be the best angle, but if that fails, should we just look for another day? Or should we, if it fails, of course?
Yeah, we'll give that a go, yeah. I mean, okay. Have you got a laptop there? Because, I mean, that'll probably be fine.
Yeah, this is my laptop.
Right, okay. I'll shut up
then. Yeah.
Well, we'll just crack on. So just let's go on from where we're talking about positions.
Yeah. So my favourite position is the operator of all the 4 different locations. As I said, I've never done the driver's seat before. And I did many years as the gunner. But yeah, operator was by far my favourite. Commander, it was good. You've got the free reign, but as an operator, you pretty much, you are the mother of that vehicle. You're looking after all the guys in and around you. But saying that though, of the 6 tours that I've done, I've only done 1 tour as a Challenger 2 operator, or Challenger 2 gunner. So yeah, I've been in the Vikings, I've been dismount, I've been Land Rover. So although I've had many years of experience in the tanks on exercise in Canada and all over Germany, yeah, when it comes to the crunch, I've only done 1 tour, which is Telek 1.
And I was on Telek 1. It was impressive, and I'm proud of what we did. In hindsight, it's a bit, people might say we shouldn't have been there and all that, and probably agree with them. But we went out there to do our job, and we were good at it.
Yes. No, I really enjoyed. I enjoyed going.
What's your experiences of Telek 1?
It's always going to be a political motivation, isn't it? It's never not going to be a political motivation. Do I think that we did a good job over there? Initially, when we were there, yeah, I would say so. But there is a knock-on effect to where we are today, and the fallout of, well, there was the war on terror, wasn't there? And that war on terror made soldiers somewhat hate the Middle Eastern way of life. And then as you get through your career and you get pushed out the other end, you very much become unaware of your surroundings anymore, because your new surroundings are saying you can't say nasty, horrible things to that person that was taught you.
Okay, is that any better?
That's miles better, apart from one thing: turn your phone sideways.
Roger. And I've got a nasty echo, but you know what? I can live with that. See if I can. How's that for you?
That's weird, because normally when you turn your phone sideways, this changes to landscape, and it's not. So that's bizarre that it's doing that. That's really weird.
So I'm landscape, but you're still sideways to me. Yeah. So you're like that, and I'm sat here looking at me like this. Is it something? I don't think I'm in absolutely zero luck with it. Yeah, I've got that button turned on.
That's weird. I've never seen it do this before.
It must be. I think it's the weather, to be fair, mate, because there's a lot of dark clouds overhead, and it feels like a thunderstorm.
Right, put it back into portrait. I'll have to sort it out in post edit, because that's bizarre. That's weird. Normally the software flips you as well and puts you in the right position.
Okay. Well, if I turn it upside down, maybe. No, nothing. No. You're just staying static.
Right. Okay. No, we'll work it out. Right. Okay. So that's 15 minutes, 20 minutes. It's a better connection because I can hear you a lot better.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with my laptop. Never had an issue with it before.
Right. Okay. So start from Telek again. For going into Telek.
Yeah. So the only time I've ever been on tour with a Challenge 2 is in Telek 1, where I was the CO's gunner, and yeah, that was a different experience in itself.
I remember we went across the border, and I was doing recce for the battery, and we had to shoot up early towards the airport, and we were going in and out of all the. I mean, I've never seen so many vehicles in my life. Vehicles, Yanks, honestly. And we were in an old 432. We were nipping in and out of them, like, and they were like looking down on us, going, "What the hell's that?" And we were. What's that? And then we got to one point where the RMPs were there, and they just stopped everyone. And we were like, what's the matter? And they were over there, a big bloody tank battle going on. So we just sat there, BV, they ain't going to brew. And I just sat watching it. It was quite impressive.
Yeah.
But Telek 1 for me was, weirdly, to start with, it was like just being on exercise, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah, it's not until something happens that you think, oh, fucking hell, it's real life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think my easiest tour I've ever had was Telek 2. By far is the easiest. So they were just looking for volunteers. So it was the only time I'd never been in any contact. I'd never been in any. It was just a case of going to the Shuttle Arab and protecting Saddam Hussein's palace. And I think it was 401 or 201 Signal Squadron. So we were doing force protection for them. And it was just so easy. My regiment disappeared back to camp, to Germany. And maybe 6 of us stayed behind to stag on pretty much for a handful of months. And that's what it was, stagging on. You did one stag in 2 or 3 days, like one day on, one night on, one day off or whatever it looked like. I can't remember the ins and outs of it. But we would just go to the locals, get a fishing rod, fish in the Chateau Arab, which was illegal for the locals to do. So we was just literally doing untapped fishing, and the fish were huge. Take a fish, go to what we would class as a naffy or whatever it was, swap a fish for like a massive crate of Coke, and then that would be you. Just swap over. Just either sunbathing, fishing, swimming.
Oh, it all changed pretty quick though, didn't it?
Oh, it did, yeah. We had this Tony Blair coming to visit us. I refused to see him. I was like, no, I'm good to go. He can go and play with all the signalers and pretend that he's come and join the war in the belly of the beast, when in fact it's all been done and dusted.
I mean, it was when we, straight after the war finished, we were up at Shibre log base with the vehicles and stuff like that.
Yes.
You'd go into town and stuff, like on a run down to the palace or whatever. And the locals were like really happy to see you. I mean, we were quite lucky. One of the lads found where there was an off license in Basra.
Yeah.
And we snuck down one night and came out there with quite a few crates.
Yeah.
It was bizarre.
Yeah.
And then, you're seeing a few months later, well, not even a few months, but the tide turned, and it was very, very different to, like, I'd say Telic 3 onwards. It's just, I'm glad I didn't go and do them ones, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree. I remember being on the stag posts and like spending down some money, and they would come back with a bottle of whiskey, a bottle of Jack Daniels. Okay, Jack Daniels is not whiskey, don't get me wrong, but still, you'd have a bottle of Jack Daniels. Like, okay, tomorrow night, me and the lads going to drink some of this. $10, nice 1 litre bottle of Jack. I went on Telic 4. I like the year and a half, whenever it was later. And that was, you wouldn't recognize it. Don't get me wrong, Shibre Log Base got huge when we rolled in and took over it. Very quickly, it got massive. It got really, really big. And you're right. Everybody had a change of opinion. At one stage, you could, like on the gate, people would come in and it's like, Mr. and just like have a conversation with you to like swap bottles of water or whatever have you. Telic 4, it was a different mentality from the locals. Everybody you go into ID Alley and then it's just like, we're going to get contacted. The locals had no more of a friendly persona about themselves in comparison to 1 and 2.
We stayed too long for a start. We didn't have a plan for after the war. I'll say we didn't, the Americans didn't. And we should have left as soon as possible. I mean, there's a lot of things. I've had a guy on who wrote a book about Optile, journalist, and it's quite interesting. And the discussion I had with him, he goes, basically, there was many things that went wrong. He goes, the biggest thing we did wrong, or the Americans did wrong, sorry, was to remove the serving military and the serving politics and politicians, because they're the ones who controlled everything. So getting rid of them, and putting people in charge who didn't know what they were doing, the whole infrastructure just collapsed. If we'd have kept them there and used them properly, it would have been a very, very different outcome, I do believe. Very different outcome. Going back, looking at what I said, I don't know if I've been back there, but looking into things about what it's like there now, it's a lot better, and I think it's a lot better now than it was before Saddam Hussein was running things. That's my opinion, and as we all know, opinions like ourselves, everybody's got one.
Yeah, quite right.
But I do believe it's a better country now than it was. It just took far too long for it to get there, and then you can't compare Iraq to Afghanistan because it's two very, very different countries, two very different societies, and two very different outcomes, if you know what I mean.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I think, for my opinion, for what its 10 pence is worth, I think killing Saddam Hussein and then us withdrawing, cutting the head off the snake. There was so many fractured elements of people that weren't afraid to stand up and fight. Now, I don't know what Iraq is like today, but I think there was lots of splinter cells coming out from there, and then just going to anywhere and everywhere. I think that could have been one of the problems that we're seeing in the last 10 years with destroying of statues and terrorist attacks left, right, and Chelsea. And then that also mixed up with, you saying, the Afghans. I think amalgamating the Iraqis and the Afghans together, that's a force to be reckoned with, if you were to ask me.
I mean, with the I think a lot of the trouble that was in Iraq later on, most of it was Iranian backed anyway. Like the Iranians backed the Mahdi army and stuff like that. It's just, us Tom's on the ground. That's beyond our, knowledge and ability to deal with it or anything like that. But it's, it is what it is. It's history, and we were part of it. At some point we'll still hold our heads up high and say, yeah, I was there.
Yeah. Although I think there is a bit of a fear factor. Back into 2003 onwards, when we was at the War of Terror, and that War of Terror made soldiers look to the Middle East as the enemy. And I think for lots of the mindsets of soldiers may have done 20 years or whatever, when they're coming out the other end, they're walking down the street and rubbing shoulders with those people that they would have seen as the enemy one day, or a threat, not so much as the enemy, but and there is an element of fear in the back of minds, and people really don't know how to just conduct themselves, or the freedom of speech. I think that the link between being a soldier and being a veteran is a very big jump, because no one's got your back anymore. And what I mean by that is, if you were to say something, then there's always like PA behind you, or there's going to be an officer that's like, I don't think you should be saying that, young trooper or whatever. But when you're a veteran, you are yourself without the back of anyone behind you. So you are pretty much screwed if you say or do the wrong thing without the right advice and guidance.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. We did look at, and a very, I'm not politically correct or anything like that, but you'd call them ragheads, and is it offensive? Probably. I've been out of the military now 13 years, and I still suffer political correctness. I literally have none. I have no filter. But that's 27 years in the military. But what you've just said something there has made me think. So when I first started doing the podcast, I had Godfrey Bloom on. Now, Godfrey Bloom is quite a divisive character with certain people. Certain people think he's right-wing. Certain people think he's, whatever. And he's not right-wing. He really isn't. So I was introduced to him, invited him on a podcast. He came on and did it. And then I got a message off somebody straight afterwards, after it had aired, saying that he wanted to come on the podcast. And I said, yeah, of course you can. Just somebody out of the blue. And the reason for what he wanted to do is that he didn't want the general public watching the podcast and thinking that we all thought the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't. I'd say the military and veterans, especially salty veterans, have got a reputation of being a bit right of centre, if you know what I mean. If you watch some of the social media posts and stuff like that, now the majority of that stuff's just banter. It's just people saying things. But there definitely is some right-wing leanings, if you know what I mean.
I think that
could be the genesis of that. Could be, exactly what you just said. Then
I also think there's a realism behind it. So when we were in Afghanistan, there's a culture within Afghan that grown-aged men will take 8-year-old boys off the street and these groups of men will have them dress up as girls, dance, and then sodomize them. And you could hear the screaming throughout the night. And we, as a collective, on more than one occasion, tried stopping that. Now, I've witnessed this firsthand. As we tried to stop it, the next day they're popping grenades over the walls, or they're firing RPGs at us on checkpoints, or the small arms fire. That is something. Now, I'm not sat here saying everyone's going to be like that, but it is woven into the culture. And I believe that don't quote me on this, but I believe that the Taliban didn't like that. I can't remember the terminology of it. In fact, if you give me a second, I'm not going to find the name of it, but it's like buddy or whatever it is.
Yeah,
the dancing boy.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and that will has found itself on the streets in the UK. So I think when you're saying that there's many soldiers that appear to be right wing, I think before it come as a national issue, when soldiers have said that they've witnessed stuff like this in the past, people with head bury, and then that's very frustrating for the individual or the veteran to say, look, I am fearful of the Islamic culture. because of what I've seen on how they present themselves. Sorry, I'm going to cough. Excuse me. Yeah. So I'm not sat here saying everyone from the Middle East are nasty and horrible, but that was what was drummed into us 22 or 23 years ago when we was going over there for Telic 1 and pushed all the way through to us witnessing how they live their lives, how they treat their women and how they treat children. So it's not, in my opinion, it's not to finger point and say, well, they're all like this, but you have to stand back and say this culture that I was scared to be in is now and runs my young children, my wife and my friends. So I don't know.
I know what you mean. It's quite a fearful situation, but it depends. I think, without getting political, and to be honest, I don't know enough about the subject really.
Probably going to get arrested for this, you know that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. You are.
Yeah.
It's a very emotive thing as well. People are scared. They are. They just are. But how much of that has been portrayed on social media and it's been blown up? And it literally depends. Stuff on TikTok, stuff on Facebook. That's the sad fact we've got at the moment, is that a lot of people get their news and their understanding from social media posts. And they don't bother going looking it up themselves. They just go, yeah.
I think I may have lost you.
No, you came back. They use social media to run their lives, because it's quite easy. You just the news is pushed in front of you now. You don't have to go and look for it. You can believe whatever you want. Anything that sides with your ideology slightly, you're going to cling on to. And then you've got the other ones, the ultra liberals, the far left. We've got the far. I don't think there's any far right or really far left. I just think it's just people. I'm a centralist as it is. But you've got, the nationalists are very. How can I put it? The nationalist is not a racist, right? If that makes sense. Where they get accused of it, and nationalists believe in their country and their country first. Race has got nothing to do with it. It really hasn't. But you get the other side of the fence where it's just that you're trying to bring everyone down to the same level and this, that, and you want to kick everybody out. Borders this, borders that. So, all right, fine. You tell me what's like in 10 years' time, and your kids can't get a house because there's none left. And I'm starting to notice stuff like that now, and I do try to keep away from stuff like that on the podcast, but it is getting more and more noticeable. More and more people are talking about it as well. So, what was it like for you after Telic then when you got back to Germany?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I think Telic changed me. I think when I was 19 years old when I went to Telic, and I think when that was kind of the turning point, just to see the things that I saw over there was very fearful. And I noticed that when I went on leave, my friends started viewing me differently, started treating me differently, but I started acting differently myself. One could say I was growing up, or one could say I was becoming less immature, or perhaps more darker. Perhaps I was becoming more of your stereotypical soldier mentality. But yeah, for me, I sort of started owning myself, started really leaning into who I was. So yeah, going back from Telic, doing Telic 1, 2, 4, 7, and Herrick 13, 14. I spat out the other end, and I was like, I've had enough now. I don't want to go into this 2-year cycle anymore. And I noticed some of the guys, there was a small little nickname for me as the Padre, because, I'd always sit them down and say, hey, what's going on, mate? You're not looking yourself. You're acting a bit different. And I found a love to understand my own mind. So we were taught to navigate deserts, jungles, woodlands, wherever it is, but not navigate our mind, and realizing that I picked up a book, it's just behind me over here, The Chimp Paradox by Professor Stephen Peters, or Peter Stevens, can never remember which way around it goes. And I really, really got sucked into his focus of the way that the mind works, of how much stronger the subconscious is in comparison to the conscious mind, and how the computer records everything with his little gremlins. Yeah.
At the beginning of the year, I went on a bit of a road trip in my camper van. I went all the way down, where I went to training onto the south coast, drove over to Kent and come back up to Northumberland over a space of a few days. And I listened to a podcast on the way down, or coming back it was, and it was Davina McCall interviewing him about the chimp paradox.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind. And I was just like, that's so right.
Mm-hmm.
And it explains so much. And if anyone doesn't know about the chimp paradox, I find it, because I'm not really good with words, and I find it quite hard to explain what it is. Do you want to just give us a bit about it?
Yeah. So they say that the mind's broken up into three different areas. The conscious, the subconscious, and the computer. So your subconscious is 10 times stronger than you. It's a chimp that's stuck in a cage. And when you get riled up, when you get pissed off, when you get something that happens that you don't like, the chimp jumps out and takes over. Now, you could just be, your intention is to go to the shops. Let's just take a wee walk to the shops and buy a packet of crisps and Coke and come back to the house, wherever that is. Nice, simple. The plan's there. But as you go out, someone walks past you and shoulder barges you. Normally, with a normal mindset, you could easily like, oh, sorry, mate, and carry on. However, with a mindset of the chimp is 10 times stronger than you, it comes out of its cage. It either starts throwing punches or starts screaming and shouting at you, or at the other person. And you as an individual is going to really find it difficult to control that chimp because it's so powerful. But there's other ways around controlling it. And everything that you do gets stored into that computer. Now, within the storage of the computer, there's little gremlins that screw you over, make you believe something that isn't true, that could be true, like false truths. It's like every single time I go to the shop, someone's going to shoulder barge me. It happened to me once. It's going to happen to me every other time, and that gets stored in the computer. And this also goes back to childhood as well. The life that you are living as a child, as you start living these your life experiences all get stored in the computer, and the expectations to have the same reaction around you. And that's why you pick up the same fight-flight response. But there are ways to control that chimp, and there are ways to put that chimp back into its cage. But yeah, I'd definitely say, Frankie, to give that book. That was my stepping stone into the mental health world.
So I mean, you were in the Tankies for like 15 years, and then you moved over to the Army Welfare Services. I'm quite lucky when I was in the military. Never really got involved with the Army Welfare Services at all. Never needed to. Might have been pulled into Family's office a couple of times. In fact, they did try and give me a job once in the Family's office, and then realised, I probably don't want him in there. And I was like, no, you don't fucking want me in there. You don't want me in there. But I'm lucky. I never got involved with the Army Welfare Services. No need to. I would imagine, knowing the varied types of people who joined the military, and I once worked with a doctor in 1995, and I was talking to him one night. We were out in Bosnia. We were attached to some medics. I was talking to him one night, and he said something to me, and it's always stuck with me ever since. And how he explained it to me was that the Army Welfare Services, or the Army as a whole, or the military as a whole, does have a lot of problems. Because there's a lot of baggage that gets brought into it. Not only from the people who are joining the military, and some people are joining the military to get away from family, from circumstances, they're bringing that baggage there. But they tend to find, I don't want to, it's a very broad brush this, and it shouldn't be, is that you do tend to get women who want to marry squaddies or military looking for stability, and they're bringing their own baggage as well. And maybe they're getting married for the wrong type of reasons, and that causes issues later on. And I've seen that, we've all seen that, I would imagine the job that you were doing, you've seen a lot more of that, and I'd imagine it opened your eyes.
Yeah, you realise that there's even the statistics for domestic abuse, for example, are not in the military, but just walking down the street, every fourth house is going to be domestic abuse in every four houses, 1 in 4. So when you're in the military and I'm dealing with people and they're dependent, or the soldiers and the dependents, anything from anxiety and talking someone off a bridge to couples therapy, domestic abuse. It's an array of different issues, from trying to do a SAR if someone's really not interested or wanting to be on their tour or on their posting because of mental health issues or mental health reasons, whatever that looks like. Then there's a lot of work to put a special recommendation to move them. No one day was the same, and I really enjoyed it because I'd gone from the far left, if you would look at it, on the Sabre Squadron to all the way to the right, where I was Army Welfare Service, where some people didn't even recognise us as soldiers because they had adopted a very different mindset of the two. And that was an eye opener just to see how that service was perceived internally and externally.
I mean, is the Army Welfare Services big enough? Did it need more people?
I believe there was like 67 people when I turned up, that's including civvies. That's how I met my wife. My wife is an Army Welfare worker. She was a civilian in Colchester, and I was over in Northern Ireland when I met her. And so we both ended up leaving at the same time. Well, give or take, she was maybe a year after me. I was medical discharged with PTSD. I was a bit fucked between you and I, and whoever's listening. But yeah, it needs more people. There are flaws, in my opinion, in the Army Welfare Service, but it does create a service that can help and can be an eye-opener. I think the Vets UK has got the Veterans Service, the Army Veterans Service, and that's like the equivalent to the Army Welfare Service. And yeah, both hand in hand. You're taught a lot, you know a lot, and the more people that you interact with, the more you can help them. The more experience you get, and that was for me the building blocks to me creating my business.
Did you find that you get a lot of pushback from regiments who like, I want to say naysayed you type of thing? You know, you're going in to try and help someone, recommending this happens or saying that's got to happen, and you get, no, he's not leaving here. We need him. You know, where the regiment takes the regiment's needs over that of the individual.
No, it really does depend on what area that you're in. And it depends on the relationship that you have with that regiment. So when I was living in Northern Ireland was amazing. It's like, okay, you would spot them. This person's Army Welfare Service. Okay, they're the subject matter experts. They will listen to us. Whereas there was different areas. I'm not going to start which regions, but some of them didn't have a strong relationship with the Army Welfare Service, certain regiments, and just that bond between the two of them, there was no respect, if you could say. So as we'd go out and teach the welfare officers or teach the guys on the ground, there was lots of blockers because someone had a bad experience with one of them, and there's been tarnished with that brush to not work with any of them. But then it's again building that rapport and saying, look, I've had one-to-one with this individual, and this individual could be a risk themselves if you was to do that, but this needs to be said in confidence. And just having that, just building the rapport up, as I said, with the colonel, with the officers, and interacting with them rather than just waiting for referrals, getting yourself out there and saying, look, we are who we are and this is what we are. The amount of conversations I've had with people, and they thought that we were just a case of a tea and biscuits, like the WRVS. It's like, no, this is very, very different. It's a different scale of mindset different.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I never really had any dealings with it, but I was aware of them, and I have seen other people get help from the Army Welfare Services. The only reason I ask about pushbacks from the regiment is I've seen that as well. I've seen where, like I say, I joined in the 80s, right, and there was no mental health thought of, and it was all nearly up until I got up in 2012. And it was getting better, but it still wasn't good. If somebody had an issue, they just got pushed to the side and ignored. People stopped talking to them. We had guys who obviously needed help. When you think back now, later, hindsight's a wonderful thing and all that. But they would become like persona non grata. You just didn't want to go. You didn't want to be associated with them, so you avoided them.
Yeah,
and that's. Then we didn't know any different. It was just the way everybody was. It was all man up. Guys, someone sent to me on a podcast, right? And he said it really good, and I just went, I never thought of that. He says, when someone tells me, used to tell me to man up, I'd go, well, what's that? What's manning up?
Yeah.
And you're like, what is it? Is it just fucking ignoring everything? Is it, what he said, well, you should take an accountability, of your actions and other people's actions as well. But just saying man up, what's that? What's manning up? In them days, it was just you said shit like that just so you didn't have to deal with anything.
Yeah.
I mean,
even
yeah, go on.
even the stigma right now is still prevalent. It's still there. Many people would rather like work with myself one-to-one away from any sort of link to them back to the military because they don't want to be fearfully tarnished with, oh, if I go to the Army Welfare Service, then someone might see me liaise with them, or if my troop leader knows that I've been working with them, then I'm going to be less of a soldier. Or I'm not going to go to the doctor and divulge what's going on from upstairs because I don't want to be a letdown to my teammates, or I want to go on tour because that's what I joined the military for. And there is still, when I left, don't get me wrong, I left maybe 5 years ago, and there was still a very strong stigma of reaching out for help, rather than just saying, I'm struggling here. Self-help is what I find is one of the best ways to overcome this.
I mean, I've spoken to guys who are serving now, or have very recently got out, and the trauma risk management that they go through and the training they've got, it is a lot better. We never had anything like that. We'd come back off a tour and just go, that's it, you're back. First Ireland tour, come back, there was no like staying in camp for a bit or anything like that. We were gone. When I come back from my first tour of Bosnia, no staying in camp. I couldn't wait to get off. So I was attached to another regiment anyway. As soon as we landed back in Colchester, all right, the bus will be for you tomorrow. We're fucking gone. That type of thing. And then later on, as you've gone through Telic and Herrick, and you're coming back and you're doing the Cyprus jaunts and stuff like that. The amount of people that told me that was just a waste of time. I never went there, never did that, so I can't say what it was like personally. But nearly everyone I know, and I've not had one person tell me it was any good. They just said it was a waste of time. It either didn't get Trek right, it wasn't long enough. But then you try and stick 400 blokes in Camp Radio Sond, and all they want to do is go on, and you're trying to risk manage them and talk to them. It's not going to happen. They're not going to be interested. They just want to go home. Deal with it there. Or, but then you let them out loose down Fallenbosch or down Horner when they've just been, it's not going to end well. So it never does.
No, you're right. You are right.
So, I mean, you mentioned there that you got medically discharged because of PTSD. How did that process start for you? When did you notice there was something wrong with you, and how did you get help?
I think that when it first started, I would have been I was in Bovington training, and I didn't want to go back to the unit. I was posted away, and I was like, I want to get out of here. So initially, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to transfer over to the RAF, and I wanted to be mountain rescue. And I think it was the Prince Andrews Trust, or no, I can't remember what it was anyway. But there was a regiment, and as I was literally applying to go to the RAF, it liquidated. And I was like, okay, option number 2, what am I really wanting to do? And I was like, well, I've just read the Chimp Paradox, and this first step had really interested me. So I transferred over to, first point was the Army Welfare Service, second one was DCMH as a nurse. I can't remember what the third one was, just something probably random. And I ended up going through the process. And my thought process was, if I learn more about what's going on for me upstairs, then there's going to be no need for me to seek any help because I'm already knowing the answers and I can check in with myself. And it's a self-analysis and looking after my own way. And then when I was in the Army Welfare Service for a handful of years, it just come to a crux. And I was like, I'm done. I was seeping through the seams, you could say. And I was like, I can't focus. And then I was taken off sick. And then I think I was just overwhelmed with the knowledge and awareness of true reflection. I held a mirror up to who I was, and I didn't like who was looking back at me. And it was like a little bit of an escapism to help other people, other soldiers. But I think, it all come to a front, and I was like, that's me done. And then I was medically discharged, and that's when I lost my myself. I lost my, think of the right word for it there, my identity. I literally lost who I was. I was a senior NCO. I was respected. I had lots of friends. I felt that I could go into any sort of military establishment and make a friend or have a conversation. And I was like, okay, now I'm a civilian. What does that mean? And I was just lost. I was lost, and I didn't. And I started self-harming. I was drinking and fighting. I was like, I I can't control what's going upstairs. As I said, I felt almost overwhelmed with information, and I was just using it on me, but that wasn't the best tool. And so I was falling apart inside out. And the way I would explain how I felt was, if you imagine a hurricane and everything's spinning clockwise extremely fast, you can focus on nothing. I was in the eye of the storm on a flat spin going anti-clockwise, and I have no control over what's going on. But I can control my immediate environment. I could put this here, and I could put that there, and I can alphabet this, or I could put that color coordinated, or I can hang that there and make it all really nice. But that was just all superficial. I had no control of what's going on externally or internally. And that in itself become OCD. I was just like, I have no idea how to manage my emotions, and I have no idea how to manage my outside world, because I've been in the military for 20 years. I didn't know how to understand how to pay rent, as simple as it was, or I didn't understand taxes or tax returns. I didn't know what I was doing. The only time I'd really had to step in City Street, I was on leave, and that time I'd just get drunk.
Yeah. I mean, our self-treatment, always, you always end up drinking too much. You have that beer, you have them few beers, you feel better, so you just carry on doing it, and I've been there, and I'd imagine a lot of people who listen to this have been there as well. Probably some of us still are, unfortunately. Your self-medication, whether it be alcohol, drugs, whatever. I mean, interestingly, the podcast that comes out tomorrow, because this one's coming out next week, I interviewed a lady from America 2 nights ago, GM Baldwina, and she was a US Navy veteran, and she's now a cannabis advocate. She's got cannabis stores in California and stuff like that. And I was talking to her about it, and I was saying, in England, it's very, that type of culture is very different when it was open. It is, we can get cannabis on the NHS for certain things, to aid with pain relief and stuff like that, which is what, she's advocating over there as well. There's something called Ryan's Law. But she never, like she said, I'd had a bit of a smoke when I was in college, in the military, nothing, and I said, well, it's such a dark subject in the military. Drugs are a big no-no. I'm not saying people don't do it. Of course they do. Otherwise, people wouldn't get kicked out under CDT. If people didn't do drugs in the military, we wouldn't have CDT. I remember before the times of CDT, and we were in Germany in the late 80s. There was a lot of people smoked. Put it that way. A lot of people did. That the RMPs are coming in. People were throwing pepper in the bottom of the lockers and all sorts to screw the dogs up. It was the Wild West, and then it's bred into us to believe that everything like that's bad, and the way she ended up explaining it to me, and the way she went on to it, was she'd had an injury in the Navy that made her have to leave. She had a traumatic brain injury, and she couldn't sleep anymore. She was in pain. Her mind was always racing and stuff like that. And someone had said to her, "Go and have a joint. Go to get it properly at the dispensary and stuff like that, and just do it." And she said after that first one, she slept. She hadn't slept for like 4 years properly. That first night, slept. And she's not walking on the street giving it all this. I'm still now trying to defend her, because in my own mind I'm still thinking it's wrong. And is it not? Is it a form of therapy, or is it the way we do it the accepted route, which is alcohol? And alcohol, we know, is worse for you than 99% of everything else. It just is. It screws your body up, it screws your mind up. I remember when I used to drink a lot. If I didn't drink for a couple of nights, I couldn't sleep, because I know your brain's still looking for the alcohol, and it races, and you have some vivid dreams and shit like that. And so when we try to self-medicate, we can't. We shouldn't be allowed to. We shouldn't allow ourselves to try and do that. We should always seek external help, even though we're conditioned not to do that, even now. Whether that's because you're in the military, or just because you're a bloke. I think we're getting better at it than we used to be. People are talking more, a lot more. The things I've heard on this podcast has opened my eyes. It opened my eyes that much that I went off and done the level 2 counselling course to see if I wanted to go down that route. As it turns out, I went past it, but as it turns out, I probably haven't got the empathy. I'm better on it. I'm getting better on it, but it's no, I wouldn't say I have got a lot of empathy for people. What I haven't got is the brains to do it. I just thought that this is a bit well over my head. Maybe I'll go back to it when I've got nothing else to do. But there's something I want to talk about after the podcast as well that you might be interested in. So we'll talk about that afterwards. So I mean, you're trying to self-medicate there, and we've already discussed that you shouldn't try and do that. When did you realise that was the case, and then actually seek help?
Well, as I said, my wife was in the Army Welfare Service, and she couldn't handle me at all. And she suggested that I set up my own business and start helping other people like I was in the Army Welfare Service, but with a twist of she introduced me to hypnotherapy. And at the time I was like, not a chance. There is not a chance in hell I'm going to be doing hypnotherapy because that's very woo-woo stuff. That's very not me, until I listened to it for the first time. And I was like, this is the missing link from talking therapy to situational awareness, to the environment, to that a voice inside of your head. It's the demon on your shoulders. It's talking directly to it until I get to piss off. Stop holding you accountable for that thing that happened 20 years ago. So I started seeing a hypnotherapist as part of my education and training within the hypnotherapy world. And that got me on the straight and narrow. And I was like, this is amazing. I love it. So I listened to my wife. I created Remaster Your Mind, my business. I published a self-help book called My Mental Health Journal. And it's all about the individual that knows, you know that you are struggling and you're afraid to say anything, but you can say it to yourself. You can sit down at 1 o'clock in the morning with tears rolling down your face, fearful of saying it to anybody apart from yourself and saying, I need some fucking help. I don't know who to turn to, but if you can turn to yourself with that self-help journal and then just get your thoughts out on paper, then that's your way in. And then you can say, okay, I've done it to myself. I can do it. I can reach out to a professional now if I want to, if I feel I'm comfortable to. So to answer your question, I did a lot of self-healing, and then I got professional help, and then I took a step back and understood the more of a holistic approach to helping individuals. And yeah, I started running my business as also almost again another escapism to blindside myself of my inner demons until they were done. And then the more I've been doing this, the more I've become true to myself, and I can really, again, standing up and looking in that mirror, I can now look on the other, who's on the reflection back, looking back at me, and have a conversation with that individual, and almost make friends with myself. That's that's a bit unfair. To make friends with myself. Yeah. So there's a stigma to say, oh, don't love yourself because that's just too egotistical, or whatever that looks like. You can say you hate yourself. That's acceptable, but I love myself. Oh, don't be saying stuff like that. Don't use the L word. That's worse than the C word or the N word. So I generally came to understanding who I am, my background, my journey, and myself. So I can say, do you know what? I do love me. And the best way I can love my kids is by loving myself first, because you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah, get that. I mean, you said there for a holistic approach and your initial thought of hypnotherapy. I can imagine a lot of guys listening to this. I mean, I don't. Yeah. Until I started getting into this and getting into the different types of therapy and understanding them a bit more. I kind of link hypnotherapy to almost EMDR. It's the same type of thing, and then the trauma risk or reduction therapy, which I had a guy the week. We were talking about that. And that was, believe it or not, if you go back and watch our podcast, I'm talking to him and he's telling me about it. And he's explaining to me the process of it. And I'm doing it in my head. And I just sat there and I was like, fucking hell, that was it. And there was just something in my head went, right, now you understand why you're feeling like that all these years.
Mm-hmm.
It was just afterwards, it was just like, wow. I'd finished the podcast, went downstairs, and I just sat there and went, you dickhead. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was like, Matt. So, I mean, with EMDR, the rapid eye movement and stuff like that, I'd imagine that's quite closely linked with the way that hypnotherapy works as well.
Yeah, very much so. I think EMDR is very linear, so it just takes you into a loop and keeps on until you hit that positive spiral before you come out. Whereas hypnotherapy is very much like taking you back to a time when that thing, that crux, that problem, if you can imagine, if you just have three main problems in your life, identifying the first one and really focusing on it and crushing it down to say, it isn't your fault. That thing that happened when you was 12, that thing that happened when you was 8, you've held yourself accountable for that thing, and you've hated yourself for it ever since when you really scratch beneath the surface. And that 8-year-old is still you as a 30-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old, a 60-year-old, still reverting back to that self-hatred and, the learned belief that you aren't enough.
There's many, many different types of therapy out there. And it's not like one size fits all. I know guys have gone through talking therapies, writing therapies. They've done EMDR, it didn't work for them. They've done hypnotherapy, it's not worked for them. I know one guy who's done diving therapy, and I'd never heard of that. But it's the theory of that one is that trauma causes a physical scar in the brain with cortisol. It blocks the synapses so that it can't travel where it should be. So they can't get rid of. We know we can't destroy cortisol. It just moves, type of thing. So with the deep diving therapy, the only place you can go and do it is in the Bahamas, because it's kind of like you take novice divers down too low. You can't do it in Europe. It's just far too long. But they do this, they hold them there. So it's almost like the nitrogen in it starts to break down the cortisol in the brain. And 5 days later, generally the people who've gone it, I think they've done many, many people over there, not just veterans, but they get people going there from the States who went through sexual trauma, through physical violence, and stuff like that. And it's worked for everybody who's been on it. They all come out of it much better. I wouldn't say cured of PTSD, because some people believe you can never be cured of PTSD. I think you can.
Yeah, I believe
you can. Yeah, but I mean, I'm not a psychologist. But I'm starting to learn more and more as I see all the different types of therapy. What I do wish we could do is I wish we could talk more, and I would hope that we, as a doctor, if somebody comes to you as a doctor and asks for help, instead of just going, oh shit, yeah, antidepressants, this should be the last thing that you give people. They just work. They just make them worse. You make them dependent on it. When I was quite lucky. When I went to sort help, I filled I said lucky. I asked a nurse while I was in for something else, and she just went, "Oh, you filled a form in online." I thought, bitch. So that night up and filled this form in online. 2 days later, I was in front of my GP, and she just went, "Right, well, tell me what's going on." And I couldn't speak for like 10 minutes. I just sat there, and then everything just went there. And she just went, "All right, okay. You're a veteran, aren't you?" I went, yeah. She's like, yeah, there you go. Up courage. And I was really, really lucky. But I live in a place where there's not a lot of people. I say not a lot of people. I live in like south east Northumberland. There's not many big towns around here. There's like Blythe, Crammington, Bedlington, Ashing, and stuff like that. So it's the most populated part of Northumberland. But compared to Newcastle, compared to Manchester, compared to Birmingham or something like that, there's hardly anyone here. So we tend not to have the same waiting lists that you have elsewhere in the UK. And as we both know, the waiting lists for mental health are terrible, unfortunately. There's lots and lots of help out there. There's like something like for charities and CICs, there's something like 2,000 for veterans in the UK, registered.
Funny you should say that. Yeah. I've created a couple of apps. One of the apps that I've created is something called GEM, which is called the Gareth Evans method. Now, what it is a support the supporters app. And now it's not ready yet because it's end-to-end encrypted, but it's not, I think it's called finger encrypted or back-end encrypted. I excuse the puns, whatever it is. I have no idea what that is. I'm just waiting for something slagging me, whatever. Anyway, so if you can imagine GEM as a support the supporter, if your wife, husband, partner, best friend, work colleague is supporting you, then there's going to be two issues. Number one is becoming overwhelmed, and the other two is understanding what's going on for you. Now, what this app has a left and right of it. The left-hand side is reducing your overwhelm and making you understand what's going on for you, and the other hand of it is the bridge between understanding what's going on for you, for your friend. So let's just say your husband's got PTSD, your wife's got bipolar, your son's got ADHD, or whatever that is that's going on for them, there is a bridge to understanding more of that. So that's the left-hand side of self-development. Self-development is also like learning your love language. So let's just say you go home to the wife and you say, "Hey, wife, I've got you a lovely watch." And she goes, "Oh, yeah, that's lovely, fantastic. Come and sit next to me and let's watch some Netflix." And you're like, "Oh, I've got a couple of emails to do, but I will. You've got my full attention in 10 minutes. That love language is broken down because they don't know one another intrinsically. So your love language is gift giving. And he's like, "Oh, wife, here, take a gift," expecting a massive like bells and whistles, but there's nothing there. And then she goes, "Oh, yeah, well, come and sit next to me," expecting you to say, "Oh, absolutely, yeah, I'll sit next to you now and let's kiss and cuddle." Her love language is the physical touch and positive affirmations, but that was nothing there. You're both loving each other, but you show your love, but you don't show them their love. Anyway, there's like 13 different tests to understand who you are as an individual, to learn who you are, to learn who your husband or wife or whatever that is, and then to make that connect. The right-hand side is very much what you was just saying there, is imagine a Google Maps mixed with Airbnb for therapists. So me here in Colchester, you can find if I was to search myself, do I want a psychotherapist, a hypnotherapist, a life coach? Do I want a dance therapist, or do I want an art therapist? What is your specific niche within my local area or the higher tiers throughout the whole country of what you can reach into? And the special part of this as well is, let's just say if I'm going to be doing a live masterclass on veterans' wives who are dealing with their husbands with PTSD. Now I can do that as a masterclass to learn more about that, to bridge that gap to knowing what my husband is and things to say, things not to say, just a general understand, just to bridge that gap so you can just interact with each other. It also comes in the center of journaling, which is pretty much what my mental health journal is, understanding more about yourself and also understanding what's going on for your friend or for your partner or whatever it is. Because under the very base link of it all, it was a suicide prevention app. That's grew arms and legs. So you could have like an inner circle. If let's just say your wife, your mum, your best mate, 3 people will know you very differently to how anybody else knows you, or very differently to each individual independent person is. And my best mate will not know me how my wife knows me. My mum, if she was still alive, wouldn't know me how my best mate knows me. And those people on tour, again, it's just bringing all these people in to say, we're worried about me or you or whoever it is that is the very core of it, struggling. I've got a cough. Yeah, so that's, in a nutshell, that's GEM. And that's going to be rolling out in a few months. I think I need another $5,000 just to sort the encryption out. So yeah, that's what.
Yes, people think, and I've got experience of this with apps that you can just throw them together, put them out there. You can't. You really can't. I've been working on one since January, which I thought was I thought was going to be easy. I thought it would be great, but because of the subject matter of it, you've got to be very, very, very careful. Type of thing. I'll go into more into that after we've finished this because it might be of interest to you. But yeah, it's quite an expensive do getting an app out. With the advent of like all these app builders and stuff like that, it's easy to create them. And you can create an app really, really easily. You can just go into AI and type in "do this for me," and it goes off and does it. And it's called vibe coding. All right. Now the downside of vibe coding is I'm not a coder. Right. I haven't got a degree, a computer sciences degree. I've never done a day's coding in my life. I work in IT. I understand how it works. I'm a network administrator. I look after websites, I look after hosting and stuff like that. And I've created things that I know work. I don't know how they work. You know what I mean? It's like saying I built that car just because you put petrol in it.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't know how the engine works and stuff like that. So when something breaks, it's quite hard to delve into it and find out what's wrong. And it might be too late. Yeah. Especially if you've got a public-facing application or something like that, it can be a bit time-consuming. You can get addicted to it as well. I did.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to have an app developer for all this, but nonetheless, I've been working on GEM for about a year and a half. But next week or 2 weeks time, I'm going to first launch my beta on another app called Find Hypnotherapy. Because hypnotherapists get such a bad rep, about barking like a dog and clucking like a chicken on stage.
Look into my eyes, not over there, look over here type of thing. And it's just, you'd say hypnotherapy. People don't think hypnotherapy, they think hypnotist. And and that's what they're thinking, looking at my eyes, and I'm seeing that face now in front of me, off the fast show type of thing. And I think it's like people like yourself who get out there more, and the more people that understand it, especially people who need it for therapy, it'll become more accepted.
Yeah, well, that's the reason why I've made Find Hypnotherapy, for people to find therapists, and also for hypnotherapists to grow their own business and to be professional or clinical or non-clinical, but still within the reams. So there's so many people out there that's firing from the hip, because you get certain people or certain companies that say, hey, do you want to be a hypnotherapist? Train them up and spin them out the other ends, and without the proper T's and Q's and or T's and C's. It's a minefield out there, and that's why I'm trying to bring it together to really make it professional and to standardize it. So yeah, that's the other app that I'm doing.
So is there a governing body for hypnotherapy, or is it, like you say there, is it just, it can be a bit of the Wild West?
Well, there's lots of different countries in the world that go from different governing bodies. And for the life of me, I can't think of the English or the British at all. It's gone a complete blank. But I'm working on 2 other things at the moment I think you might be interested in. The one of them is Anchor, which goes hand in hand with Jack. Can you still?
Yeah, I've got you.
Oh, brilliant. Yes, Anchor is suicide prevention that I'm going to be selling or reaching out to different businesses. Now, if you imagine the flag system or the traffic light system going from green to red with black at the end of it, where green is you're out with a pint with your mate, you're just having a quiet one, and he's just decided to go screaming and shouting at the barmaid. Is that this is not your personality, this is something wrong, this is a red flag that you wouldn't usually act or react to. And then red being that they've been very good at hiding all the red flags, and they've attempted to complete suicide, and without intervention, they're going to do it again. Where black being they've completed suicide, and you are part of the ripple effect of feeling guilty that you haven't been able to support or manage them correctly. Where Anchor can create this. Anchor can really help you do the best you can to help the other person. And then if you just sat there in the black zone saying, oh, I didn't do enough, well, at least you've done something. At least Anchor then brings you on it. And the Anchor is the acronym, because for being soldiers, we all love acronyms. It's acknowledging the behaviors, it's navigating the conversations, it's checking in with them, it's showing them, or H is help them to signpost and to show them what's available to them. Observing patterns is the O, and R is respond appropriately, listen to what they've got to say and react. So I'll be rolling that out to teach businesses. So then it's like Mental Health First Aid England, but in my opinion, a different version of it, a better version, from my opinion. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I will, because
I can say wherever you want. Just say wherever you want. So that's your plans for the future. I mean, you sound to be in a good place now from where you were previously.
Absolutely. So I'm rolling out Anchor, and I'm also rolling out OpIndex, because OpIndex is where I was. Is very true to me. Index, as very many veterans will know, Index is the words that the CO will say over the radio when you're in Canada or whatever. Index, index, index. You stop what you're doing, you get back in your vehicle, go back to camp, dekit, clean it all up, clean your weapon, go for a debrief, find out the best things you did right and things and work on points, and then go to adventure training or go back to camp, wherever that looks like. But it's also got a more of a darker scene to it, where people use it to say, right, guys, I'm indexing, I'm out of here. So it's just like calling the elephant in the room to say, look, we need to sort something. So indexing itself is a transition from being an armed forces individual to becoming a vet. And somewhere along that process, doesn't matter if you're going to be leaving the military in 3 months' time, or if you've been out of the military for 30 years' time. there's a point during this where you're going to transition properly, not when you hand your ID card in, not when you dig it, but it's when you sit down with yourself and say, okay, that's me done. I'm now a civilian, but I don't know how to navigate civil life. And you become a grumpy old bastard. And you don't understand civvy street. You don't understand workforce and work progression, or and you find yourself working for someone that's half your age, that's done nothing in their life, and you're very resentful, and you start hating authority. So Index is about getting you into the right headspace, because the military are very, very good at soft skills when you're leaving the military. They can teach us to do CVs, they can do soft skills like interview technique. But as I said earlier on, the military will teach you how to navigate deserts, jungle, wherever it's going to be, but never your own mindset. And it's about self-development. It's about situational awareness. It's about going into a new environment, and it's about conquering those. And if you can conquer those, you can become a better person. You can lift yourself. So, yeah, I've created Index on the back of where I was to have that self-reflection, to create small goals, to achieve big goals. So yeah, I'm in a very good place to where I was, and I managed to use all that sitting in my own trench, if you would, where I just wish someone else would sit next to me, not even say a word, just sit there and share a pint if you really needed to where I am now, saying, I'll help you dig that bastard and trench. I'm good to go. So in a nutshell,
I mean, I found you on TikTok. And for me, TikTok was a bit of a strange beast, I must admit. I came across it a few years ago, most like most people did, and it was just like full of. For me, the algorithm was just sending me lasses who were trying to sell their OnlyFans pages. And to be fair, I was quite happy with that. I flicked. Oh, hello. And then all of a sudden, I started getting veterans on it, and military and stuff like that. And okay. And this was before I was doing a podcast. And then I thought, well, now I'm doing a podcast, I'll get myself onto TikTok. And I don't, to be honest, I don't put enough effort into TikTok, really. I could be, I could have a lot more stuff on there. But I've seen a lot of your stuff. What made you decide to go onto TikTok or into social media, let's say, not just TikTok?
Well, I started off on Facebook, and I've got my own business page, and I got my own little blue tick thing, whatever that is. But I found that I liked TikTok because it's a one fits all. It's videos of guys and girls talking specifically about something. You go on Facebook, and as much as it's okay to hold in a page, you've got so much shite in between. And I don't know, so I've got a blended learning way of learning. And one of the strongest, one of the peaks is videos and auditory. So if I'm going to take small snippets of information, I'd rather do away with, hey, I'm an influencer and I drink this to make myself strong. Is that no, none of this, but focusing down to veterans and just listening to what the guys have got to say, and then just seeing where that goes. I class myself, well, I am a public speaker. I was recently at the Veterans Comedy Club in Colchester a couple of weeks back. I love to sit there and say my story, and I don't care if there's 1,000 people listening and 999 of them hate me and call me a dick. I don't care. I do not care. But it's just that one person that says, you are talking my language. Whatever you're saying is hitting home because we've led the same life. I've just never verbalized it. I've just never articulated it in such a way. And I found TikTok is actually really good for small little comments to say that and feel safe enough to say that without someone else saying, you big Jesse or whatever that looks.
I mean, what type of feedback do you get off there?
You get, I would say, one in a few will say, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, there's nothing wrong with me. It's like, well, there's no point even commenting, mate, well done. I'll give you a tap on the back. But generally, everyone, the messages that I read is saying, look, you've hit the nail on the head, or 100%. Is that, yes, I've got you. I'm here for you, and I will do whatever I can to help you. And if we need to have a chat like this, then that's what it's needed. I do one-to-one with individuals. I work with people for 4 months and really focus on who they are and transition them out of their current mindset into the mindset where they want to be. And as I said, Index is only like a 3-day course where I teach people the very basics, but working one-to-one with individuals is where I my bread and butter sits, especially with the Army Welfare Service and the other strings to the bow that I've adapted over the years. But no, I find that most people's comments are very positive, and everyone's got their own story, and I love reading the stories that they do say or do have. But one thing I have noticed is so many people, as they're out of the military, if they're struggling, when you say to them, "Why are you struggling?" they point their finger to the military and say they did nothing to help. Whether they did do soft skills, but they did nothing. And that's literally the birth of Index, to say, I hear you. I'm trying to get funding to do these courses to help the masses, so I can teach them all as a group to help navigate their minds.
I mean, it's interesting stuff, actually, that especially the Index side of it. It really is. I mean, I find, TikTok, I don't pay enough attention to TikTok, really. I use it to advertise the podcast type of thing. But I understand what you're saying about the comments. I don't get that many, because mostly the people who watch the podcast are generally people who I know. I had a surprising thing a couple of months back where I was out down south when I was on my little jollies, and somebody comes storming over to me in a pub, and I thought, what the hell's going on here? I was ready for a fucking, the chimp was coming out,
Yeah.
and he just stopped in front of me and goes, "You're Frankie Dunn." I was like, "Yeah." What have I done? And he goes, "No." He goes, "I watch your podcasts. I think they're great." And I was like, "Fucking what?" I was like really took back. I've only had a couple of bad comments, and that was normally on Twitter, just where it's just keyboard warriors and all that. And that's only because I'd interviewed somebody they didn't like. That's all shit. If you don't like it, don't watch it. But I need to concentrate a bit more on this side of things, because I've just been letting it slip recently. Well, Gareth, it's been lovely. We did have some technical issues at the beginning. We'll sort them out if possible. So anyone who's watched it will realise what we're on about, because 1 minute he's that way, then we're that way, then we're that way, and he's disappeared and he's back. We'll sort that out. It was an interesting first 20 minutes, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah. So I'd like to thank you for coming on a podcast. I really appreciate it, and you taking the time out of your own life to come on and explain your story. And I wish you all the best in the future.
Oh, thank you very much, and same to you.
I'll stop recording now.
Cool. I'm going to put this in.
I hope you enjoyed that podcast. I enjoyed recording it. If you could just hit the like button, and also if you could subscribe and hit the notification bell, that would be great, because it'll help the channel grow. The more people will see it, the bigger it'll get, and the more guests I can get on, and the more people I can talk to. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, like I said. Look forward to the next one. Hopefully we'll be out next week as normal. Bye-bye now.